Having watched Tales of the Jedi, I can say with confidence that it will
make a fine addition to my collection.
So let's just jump into it.
Look, I've tried making this video a bunch of times, but the script seemed too thin. I knew I needed to rewatch the show, but I really didn't want to. My first watch seemed so, well, perfect. However, to talk about the show honestly, respectfully, thoroughly, I knew it needed to be done. And now that that's done, I was left asking the question, what makes Tales of the Jedi so compelling? You could answer that question by simply saying, this show explores very complex themes in a very simple way. If you said that, I wouldn't fault you. In fact, I'd agree with you. In its 1 hour, 16 minutes and 47-second runtime, the show explores nuances in ways Disney's modern Star Wars can only dream of doing.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life!
But yet, as we will soon discover and unpack, this show is so much more than just a simple exploration of themes. In case you are blissfully unaware, a new Star Wars show came out and it shares the same stylistic DNA as the beloved Clone Wars animated series. It's written and directed by the same guy too, which is promising. Is this show good? Yeah, it is. But the question I seek to answer is, why? Why is it so compelling? What sets it apart from the modern day iterations? Is it, dare I say, to be a title worthy of recommendation without having to give 60 different caveats about how it subverts your expectations?
That's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
The miniseries follows two separate characters, Count Dooku and Ahsoka Tano. The show dedicates 3 episodes each per character. The show has clear intention to continue with what the Clone Wars animated show sought to accomplish, to further enhance the prequels. This seems to be Dave Filoni's expertise after all. Episode 1 comes first, and this right here is where my first nitpick begins. We haven't even unpacked any episodes and I already have a problem. I know. Episode 1 follows a young Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan from the Clone Wars TV show. It begins in this fashion to have chronological cohesion. What I mean by that is that the events of Tales of the Jedi Episode 1 predate the events of Episode 2, even though they are completely separate stories and follow completely separate characters. In no way did they need to be arbitrarily set out in this way. I mean, why didn't they make the episode list 1 to 3 Dooku's narrative and 4 to 6 Ahsoka's? There is no thematic relevance that I can see, so why? Anyway, I just think it's a bit of a weird design choice, but it is what it is. Let's move on. We're going to be discussing the show in 3 parts. First, we'll discuss Dooku's story, followed by Ahsoka's, and then we're going to finish with my concluding thoughts, all the while seeking to unpack the question, what makes this show so compelling? Without further ado, let's begin.
It's time to do it!
This video contains spoilers of the entirety of Tales of the Jedi. Dooku is a perplexing character. Whilst many characters in the Star Wars canon can seem two-dimensional, Dooku, a former Jedi and skeptic turned Sith, is seemingly anything but that. In many senses, Dooku's struggle with the light and dark makes him the perfect candidate for further exploration. We all struggle with doing what's right at times. We all face morally grey decisions. That's what is so initially compelling about Dooku. His story is grounded in reality and the human condition. Christopher Lee did an excellent job at portraying Dooku in the prequels.
Your swords, please. We don't want to make a mess of things in front of the Chancellor.
He always held him with a level of reform. He was in many respects a man of honor who had forsaken it.
Hold up a minute.
Look at Dooku's face here, man. Oh, that did not age well. Dooku's narrative, as we shall soon uncover, is fundamentally about indoctrination, moral ambiguity, and of course, corruption. The story of Dooku is displayed in 3 short episodes. Episode 2, 3, and 4. The arc, if we can even call it that, begins on what I would argue is the best episode of the series, aptly titled Justice. The episode sees us following a younger Dooku with his Padawan Qui-Gon Jinn. The episode is set prior to the events of The Phantom Menace. The show's setting marks a cornerstone of what makes the series conceptually so enthralling. It is consistently exploring important and interesting parts of the canon, moments we know very little about. It's filling in points of interest from the prequel era. However, its approach is mature. It is clear there is a story to be told here, and it never feels inherently fan-servicey. The episode begins with our 2 heroes landing on a desolate planet. It is clear from the opening shots that this place has been suffering for a while. Filth litters almost every frame of the screen, from the disheveled dog to the smudged windows of the ravaged and dilapidated homes. The township is clearly impoverished. Their needs are many. The 2 Jedi enter a bar-like establishment and demand the location of the Republic Senator's child. The Jedi have essentially been sent on a literal fetch quest.
Where
are they holding the senator's son?
Why should we tell you?
Allow me to make my intentions clear.
Dooku is straight business here. He lays his saber on the table for all to see. It is here we learn of the Republican senator in charge of this planet and surrounding system, Senator Dagonet. It is revealed that the senator has been in said position of power for well over a decade. They acknowledge that he may have been sincere and steadfast in his formative years. However, the degradation of the landscape is evidence enough of his complete negligence. People can start off with the best intentions, but
you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
We know absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is a perfect example of how the show's story interestingly mirrors real-world corruption. Astonishingly, it turns out every person in this washed-up, forgotten town collaborated to kidnap the child. Their goal was to draw the senator's attention and bargain for their basic human rights. Or alien rights, whatever. The townspeople willingly bring the Jedi to the prisoner. However, upon meeting the boy, the Jedis are surprised to hear that he is sympathetic to his captors. The boy has only lived in the upper echelons of society. He's been sheltered from the harshness and reality of the world his father tends to. The boy's instincts are to question his father's intention.
How could my father allow this to happen to his people?
You don't blame them for abducting you.
What choice do they have?
Smart kid and smart writing. Well, the senator has a plan to approach and attack with a fleet of armed guards to rescue his son. On one hand, he is seeking to protect his young, and on the other hand, his methods aren't exactly civil. The same can be said for theirs though. It's morally ambiguous. Senator Dagonet approaches, not expecting to see Jedi in the mix. The senator begins barking orders at them, giving them demands. Dooku's calm but forthcoming demeanor demonstrates that he is not shaken by the senator's commands, nor is he interested in obeying for obedience sake.
Step aside, Jedi.
We cannot.
You serve the Senate.
No. We serve the people of this republic.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Dooku is aware of the tenuous nature of the Jedi Council-Republic relationship. He seeks justice for the people of this planet and doesn't waver from their side. Any attempt at negotiation is squandered as the Senator commands his Republic guards to open fire on the Jedi and townsfolk.
Stand down.
The Senator is doing all he can to silence those that oppose him. This episode is eerie. It uses a grey colour palette to perfectly reflect the moral ambiguity at play here. Our characters, namely Dooku, is experiencing a circumstance that is morally grey. The treachery at play from the Republic Senator sharply contrasts the common rhetoric and expectation that the Republic are the good guys. The tension is thick in this episode. It is all-encompassing and materializes in every frame. Not to mention the conflict, its delivery, and writing feel real. In such a short period of time, Filoni has made me buy into this narrative. One by one, townspeople begin to fall. Out of rage and compassion for these people, Dooku taps into the dark side, choking the Senator with the Force. Interestingly, the tone in Qui-Gon's voice is not one of overwhelming shock or fear, indicating to me that perhaps this is not the first time he has witnessed his master employ such tactics. Dooku pushes Qui-Gon back to halt his interference. Dooku is committed to justice, even if that means taking matters into his own hands. Dooku approaches the Senator.
Corruption like yours must be eradicated.
However, the son intervenes and pleads for his father's life. Qui-Gon calmly places his hand on his master's shoulder and calms him down. Dooku's dedication to dismembering the corruption of the Republic is likely what led to him forsaking the Republic altogether and descending to the dark side. The son has saved his father. He speaks of future promises to the townsfolk. However, we never actually see if they come to fruition. These narratives elevate Star Wars. Personally, I think this episode, Justice, is the show at its best. But does Dooku's story continue at this caliber of quality? Let's find out. The next episode opens with Dooku and Windu approaching a random planet called Raxus Cicadus. I probably butchered that. It is a lush world located in the Outer Rim. Dooku is fixated with a file detailing Jedi Master Katri's death on the...
Hold up a minute.
Did you know this girl served 26 years on the Jedi High Council? My gosh, she must have been important. Ashamedly, I'd never heard of her. I imagine her to be one of the many characters displayed in the background of a once-off scene featured in the prequels at the Jedi Temple. With such extensive service on the Council, I can't wait to read about her novelization and the wiki and... There is literally nothing there. Her wiki has less substance than Finn and Rose's romance. To the best of my knowledge, and according to the wiki, this is the first time we hear of Jedi Master Catrice. All intents and purposes, this is her introduction to the canon. Welcome! You're dead. From the get-go, Dooku's inquisitive disposition on the demise of the former master is met with somber indifference from Windu. If you were to tell me Windu didn't give a crap about the death of Master Catrice, I would believe you. He seems so disinterested in investigating. Perhaps this is the inevitable outcome and consequence for a Jedi whom has severed themselves from their emotions, complete indifference. Before we move on, I want to highlight the genius of this introduction. It is truly a feat of writing. Within only 63 seconds, every line of dialogue exchanged between Dooku and Windu served an expositional purpose.
You've been studying that tablet for a long time. Are the answers you need over Master Catrice's death in that file?
And yet it frankly works far better than it has any right to. The scene leans heavily on the fact that our understanding of either of the two characters is relatively unknown, as is our understanding of their relationship.
My friend, your devotion to rules is sometimes inspiring and sometimes maddening.
I mean, this level of quality expositional writing runs leaps and bounds over modern day blockbusters. Take The Secrets of Dumbledore, for example.
A little over a year ago, in the hopes of securing a small business loan, you walked through the doors of the Steam National Bank, located about 6 blocks from here. You then made the acquaintance of Newt Scamander, the world's foremost and albeit only magicologist. You unknown the world you'd previously been wholly unaware of, met on the witch and Queen had to invite litigation only. Hey, that's all, you have your field area. The Senator Grimwald is not on the follows. What's the respect of trees? How did I do?
Why are you the way that you are?
Thanks for explaining the plot, I guess. Anyway, the two eventually land on the planet and are promptly escorted to Senator Larrick. Dooku is initially inquisitive at the Senator's choice of security. The Senator brushes this off and begins to divulge the details concerning the fallen Jedi Master.
Being the Jedi that she was, she refused to let me out of her sight. And she paid for it with her life.
He'd wished to meet an informant regarding the civil conflict on Draxus privately, without security. However, Master Catrice insisted on joining and was unfortunately killed in action by the enemy. The story is sound. However, Dooku isn't convinced. Dooku requests to visit the location where the Master fell in battle. The Senator reluctantly agrees. However, his reluctance showed his hand, and both the Masters are now aware that information is being withheld. So far, we have seen Dooku's inquisitive nature guide him. In short, he is led by his feelings. Contrasting this, we have seen Windu's undying commitment to the Jedi way and following protocol. We will touch on this in more detail later. They arrive in the forest and begin their investigation. They note damaged trees and blaster burns on central rocks. Meanwhile, the Senator's ship remains undamaged, indicating that the blaster fire likely came from behind the Jedi. It would seem that the Master Catrice was betrayed. Dooku, confident of his deduction, swiftly ignites his lightsaber, demonstrating the severity of the situation and his passion to uncover the truth regardless of consequence. This also demonstrates his affinity to violence. Much like Anakin, Dooku is not afraid to resort to conflict in the name of peace. Another keystone indicator of his susceptibility to the dark side. Windu doesn't follow suit and calls for Dooku to
be cool. It's cool, baby. It's cool.
The Senator makes a desperate attempt to flee to the Jedi's side for protection as he discloses the truth.
The guards killed her.
He is immediately shot, and the guards begin opening fire on the Jedi Masters. Cool fight scene is pretty cool. So, it turns out the rebel guards were actually extremist freedom fighters. The remaining guards account that the Senator had been utilizing the planet's natural resources to further their own prosperity, power, and wealth. All of this was done at the expense of the environment and populace on Draxus. Furthermore, adding to the layers of grey that pollute the Republic war with the Separatists. Again, it is deconstructing the narrative that the Republic are just the good guys. The guard remarks how he has observed that the Jedi are lapdogs to the Senate. Regardless of how independent the Jedi claim to be, the result is seemingly the same. They do the will of the Senate, one way or another. From this guy's perspective, the Jedi may as well be enablers, akin to a secret service, protecting those in the echelons of galactic society. This stirs Dooku.
Katri was a Jedi. She would have listened.
You can tell from the musical cues that Dooku empathizes with his sentiment. More than that, he might actually believe it himself. He consults the guard in his cell to communicate as such. The next scene shows Dooku consulting Windu regarding the Jedi's relationship to the Senate. He seeks a second opinion on the truth he perceives regarding the use and abuse of the Jedi. Windu is dum-dum loyal, showing no capacity to harbor an original thought.
Luckily, we are guided by our counsel and not by politics, nor ego.
We then cut back to Coruscant, where Kitty Mundi does the funeral speech for the passing of Master Catrice. The barrier light ignites, and we get a shot of the two Jedi divided by its aura. The use of symbolic imagery here is palpable. The light is utilized to demonstrate the schism between the two characters and their ideologies. However, it seems as if the loss of Master Catrice reaps many benefits for Windu, who has been awarded her seat on the council. Dooku inquires if Windu was aware of this before their time on Raxus.
Is this something you knew was happening before we left for Raxus?
He questions Windu's intentions. Windu brushes off the question and takes the moral high ground immediately.
I stuck to the mission. You decided to interfere in a way that led to a senator's death. I will speak to the council on your behalf.
Shut up!
Mace seems to rather overtly insinuate that his actions and decision-making were superior to Dooku's. He promises to intercede for Dooku on the council. This talking down approach, this condescension, to me demonstrates Windu's ego, which happens to be the very thing he said that distinguishes the Jedi from the Republic.
Luckily, we are guided by our council and not by politics, nor ego. Ego.
Ironic.
To me, this scene represents Windu's firm indoctrination of the Jedi mantra and way of operation. He believes himself pure, keeping to the mission, and Dooku to be the initiator of the Senator's demise. You can tell by the voice work and Dooku's delivery that he isn't having that, and with an undertone of irritation exclaims,
"How kind of you, Master Jedi."
Evidently, Dooku doesn't buy into Windu's rhetoric and instead believes his intentions to be corrupt. He could believe Windu's behavior to be that of an indictment to galactic peace, thus further perpetuating his view of grand corruption in the Council and the corrosive nature of the Republic. Wowee, a lot just happened in 12 minutes of TV, hey. I really like the pairing of these two Jedi. Dooku and Mace contrast two different ideals of Jedi principle. Dooku is using his own intelligence and following his instincts. He sensed foul play and responded accordingly with the quickest course of action. Windu is cautious but plays by the books. He is happy to play the long game. Dooku is led by compassion. He acts upon his instincts and he feels the searing pain of death, as we shall see explored in the next episode. His actions are in opposition to the Jedi mantra, which states, "There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no death. There is the Force." These underlying ideological conflicts are on full display in this episode and expertly display the nuances that separate the light and dark side of the Force. It showcases how they are not inherently good nor bad, but two different counterparts which will always exist to some degree. This symbiotic relationship of light and dark shares many similarities with yin and yang, a fundamental principle of Taoism, which is one of the foundational belief systems George was inspired by when creating the Jedi. Now we move on to the final episode in Dooku's arc. Relative to Dooku's beard, we can indeed tell that there has been a time skip. Dooku has questioned the Jedi's intentions and role in the war. He is to some measure deconstructing what he once knew to be true of the Jedi. The episode opens with Dooku deleting the Jedi archive data of Cypher Diaz's Camino project. Dooku's actions indicate that he is now in cahoots with Sidious. Nonetheless, Dooku warmly engages with his former apprentice and seeks details on Qui-Gon's encounter with Maul.
Tell them to take off!
Both Dooku and Qui-Gon lament the Jedi Council's indifference on the matter. The Council's cognitive dissonance to the threat of the Sith is insane, even as one has appeared right before them. Master Yaddle optimistically notes that even still it is not necessary to cause undue alarm. Yaddle's disposition is clearly that of which Dooku despises. She is a mouthpiece of the Council, so seemingly indoctrinated in the Jedi dogma she seldom can think for herself. Her affinity to trust rather than to question is a common trait that led to the fall of the Jedi. Nonetheless, amidst her misplaced optimism, she has compassion.
Master Dooku, are you all right?
They grow up so fast.
Just thinking in the moment.
Sith Lord is not to be trifled with. But I will not be there to protect you, my old Padawan. Well then, you're a much wiser man than I, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Thanks to your teachers.
I wish she were still alive. I could use his help right now.
And next we see Dooku. He's standing in front of the great tree. He is lamenting the loss of his student. More than that, the loss of a good friend. He recalls Qui-Gon's affinity to this tree. As he was born into a planet foreknown for its steel and stone, he knew nothing of trees or the natural world free of human intervention. Dooku refuses to attend the funeral, claiming he has no choice but to move on. It is clear he blames not his apprentice's lack of ability, but the Council's incompetence. The loss of his apprentice is likely a breaking point for Dooku. Dooku boards his ship and leaves the temple. He heads to the outskirts of Coruscant and is tailed by Master Yaddle. Dooku approaches Darth Sidious and they begin conversing. It is clear this is not their first encounter. Dooku is frustrated at Sidious's lackey killing his former apprentice. Sidious, as conniving as ever, twists the narrative.
You allowed Maul to kill him.
You lost an apprentice, and so did I. All in service of our greater goals.
As if to say he's not to blame.
It doesn't seem fair.
He further goes on to question the loyalty of Dooku, insinuating that had Qui-Gon somehow joined their ranks, they both may have attempted to overthrow Papa Palps. This is perfection for two reasons. First, it's in direct reference to the Rule of Two, a decree for the Sith established by Sith Lord Darth Bane, so they can operate in secret and eventually get revenge of the Jedi. Sidious's comment is a reflection of how the Sith often conducted themselves, as he himself did to his predecessor Darth Plagueis.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
And secondly, his comment is another means for Palpatine to deflect blame. Instead of taking accountability, he turns the focus on Dooku, further distancing himself from his rightful stake of blame over the situation. Emotional manipulation at its finest, people. This causes Dooku to immediately go on the defensive. Dooku remorsefully references his betrayal to his former pupil and friend, Sifo Dyas.
Sifo Dyas, Kamino, the clones.
His loyalty to Sidious, albeit steadfast, has caused him to do things he otherwise would never have done, and has left him feeling a deep sense of loss and pain.
I have betrayed everyone and everything I know.
No, you have been loyal to a greater cause.
Truly a maniacal villain. He expresses a greater good they are forging together. However, unbeknownst to Dooku, his attempt to detach from the negligent regime of the Jedi has led him into the same very position. Palpatine's offer of liberation is in fact a far more egregious and malevolent repackaging of indoctrination. Dooku seldom understands that all that is to come will simply be to serve Palpatine's greater goals, and as usual, the pupil will not know until it is already too late.
Good, Anakin, good. Kill him. Kill him now.
Next, we see Yaddle leaning around the corner. She seeks to put an end to the Sith's work in the shadows. Palpatine, the opportunist he is, uses his happenstance as ammunition to doubt Dooku's loyalty, further cementing Dooku's position as his lapdog.
So I have been betrayed.
No.
However, interestingly, Yaddle's plea is not one of blind righteousness. She is caring and compassionate towards Dooku, admittedly throwing off Dooku and Palpatine's narrative that the Jedi blindly serve a corrupt Senate that fails the Republic it represents. Well, then again, Dooku sure was right about corruption.
I am the Senate.
Oi, don't say that. That's not true. That's not true. Are you having a laugh as well?
To twist the knife further, Sidious explains that if Dooku wants to prove his loyalty, he must kill her. And
hold up a minute.
How did we get here? Dooku questions why Qui-Gon is dead, and now Dooku needs to prove himself? How did we get here? Dooku feels the guilt and breadth of what evils he has done. It is clear he does not take Yaddle's plea lightly, but we see that he is in too deep. A way out from this path is seemingly impossible to conceive. Cool fight scene is also very cool. Amidst their battle, we discover that Yaddle shares Dooku's sentiment regarding the Council's incompetence. She has stepped down from her position. In part, she is demonstrating that there is another way. The dark side is not the answer, but yet Dooku continues fighting, which delights Palps. And
goodbye.
Oh, wait, what? How did you live from, How
are you alive?
Whatever, never mind. Yaddle, at the end of her tether, points out the obvious logical fallacy.
I want only to bring peace and order to the galaxy.
Already so many have suffered for what you call order.
Yet, Dooku does not sway from his narrative.
Let me give you peace, Master Yaddle.
and the episode ends. Oh, and by the way, this is a kid's show. You've got to love that darker tone. The unsettling ending of a Jedi being murdered, finishing a story on evil triumphing, is bold. The galaxy of Star Wars is of course science fiction, but like all stories, they are a mirror, a refraction of our own lived realities. In our world, things are more nuanced than good guys winning every time. I appreciate their commitment to explore the grey and disrupting the tropes so heavily found in the medium. This episode is fantastic. In fact, Dooku's episodes are all fantastic. However, something is amiss. And it left me kind of feeling a bit frustrated. The time jump from Dooku's investigation of Master Catrice to his confrontation with Yaddle squanders its biggest opportunity. Ask yourself this. What was the main buy-in for why people were coming to see Dooku's story? We wanted to see a compelling narrative of how Dooku, a former Jedi, fell to the dark side. I wanted to see how and why he began to collude with Palpatine. I feel like the show only gave me breadcrumbs to that answer. He was, admittedly, disillusioned by the Jedi one moment, and then next he's killing female Yoda. The connective tissue that links Jedi Master Dooku and Darth Tyrannus are not adequately explored here. I know these are an intentionally smaller collection of episodes, however I wonder if its compartmental size serviced the story it was trying to tell. Nonetheless, to finish talking about Dooku's story, I found this great comment online that summarizes Dooku's narrative rather well. It reads, "At his heart, Dooku was a sad, lonely man who left for noble reasons. He felt he couldn't continue to serve a corrupt Senate and a republic that got his former Padawan killed, but his pursuit of the power to make change warped and twisted him until he became a monster." And that's going to cover Dooku's story. Moving right along, let's unpack Ahsoka's story. This section I found less compelling, with one standout exception. The first episode of Ahsoka's story opens with her as a mere baby. She is born on the planet Shili. If I had to take a stab at why they made this episode, it's not to demonstrate how Ahsoka was discovered as Force sensitive. I think that's a byproduct. I personally feel like they wanted to introduce us to the culture of Ahsoka's people. Following this thought, there's a lot we can observe. At the birth of Ahsoka, the father is shouting for glee. We also note that there is hierarchy in the village. The elder of said village approaches the mother holding young Ahsoka. They exchange nothing more than silence. There is a calmness to their smile, a deep sense of gratification, peace, and contentment with the prospect of the newborn. The silence is ultimately broken by the mother remarking the child's name.
Ahsoka.
The tribe are clearly well connected. They all gather to celebrate and meet the young one. There is a sense in which this is all of their child, common village mentality. We cut next to Ahsoka's mother taking her on her first hunt. It seems to be a tradition for their people. Ahsoka is so cute. I mean, just look at that. Oh. Also, it wouldn't be a Star Wars story without strange, diverse flora and fauna. I mean, this series has everything. Just look at these guys.
What are you?
Well, I'm a fawn.
Back on track, the mother makes a kill on their hunt. Young Ahsoka is understandably distressed at the sight of the dead beast. She is told she must face death, not fear it. Now this is a very cool concept. Introducing the harsh realities of the world is important. However, she is a bit young. I'm just saying, can a baby cognitively process and comprehend death? It's a bit of a tough pill to swallow for me, that a baby in any way comprehends this. But by her change in facial expression, it almost seems like she does. Big brain Ahsoka, I guess.
Whatever.
But I do like how this lesson echoes into her future, and likely strengthens her instincts as a Jedi. It just probably would have been a bit more fitting if she was a younger kid rather than being an infant, you know? But then, out of nowhere...
Oh, look at Randy Orton slithering. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Big Bear Tiger appears. Mama roars back. Mama gets yeeted. And, yep, that went about as well as I expected it would. I'm sure she's fine. Then Ahsoka is taken by the big monster. At this moment, the show absolutely lost me. Coming up has to be the most preposterous moment in the whole show. If there is a misstep, I personally think it's right here. Big Bear Tiger doesn't eat her, but begins licking its wounds. Oh wait, hang on. Now it's gonna eat her, I think. Wait, what? This is so confusing. Wait, here we go. And then, when all seems lost, the unthinkable happens. She tames the beast with the Force. Personally, I think they wrote the stakes way too high for a baby to handle. Young Ahsoka realistically is as good as dead here, and the only thing stopping her is a thick slab of plot armor.
Groovy.
It just kind of sucks when a baby is so gifted it literally makes me deconstruct the lore of Star Wars. The obvious comparison people might make here is to compare it to The Mandalorian. Let's not forget Grogu is actually 50 years old and has trained at the Jedi Temple for numerous years. Now, I know, I'm hyper invested in a universe that has space wizards as protagonists. However, I do feel like her then riding on a giant beast back into the village was, again, just a bit much. She can't even talk yet. The beast proceeds to stand up straight and then, I get it.
Who's that Pokemon?
Jedi. Ahsoka is Jedi.
Ahsoka, taming and riding a giant beast is some strong affinity to the Force, my friend.
Now what you're going to see here is why the hierarchy of power in the
Star Wars canon
is about to change.
This is something else.
That's some Chosen One level stuff right there. Anakin's abilities were surely nowhere near this caliber, at least not in the movies. The only Force Anakin likely used in The Phantom Menace was his natural piloting expertise, which are likely amplified and manifested by his affinity to the Force. Tales of the Jedi Episode 1 felt like it had a lot to say about the cycle of life. It felt like it was trying to immerse you in a rich, culturally homogenous tribe of aliens. I got the sense that I was meant to be captivated by all the little nuances and how they go about their daily activities. The problem was that I honestly didn't care. It was fine, I guess, but nothing felt fresh. It all felt like a carbon copy of things that had come before. To talk about the baby taming the beast scene one last time, I'm sick of seeing scenes like it, where our hero is so overwhelmingly gifted. It just feels unearned. How can a baby who is Force sensitive tame such a large wild beast? It's astronomically far-fetched. It broke my immersion and just left me giggling. I mean, perhaps I'm being too harsh. Let me know what you think. Anyway, the first episode was mid in my humble opinion, but episode 5 rules. Episode 5, fittingly titled Practice Makes Perfect, demonstrates the brutality of Anakin's training methods. Anakin believes that the Jedi metric of competence is severely lacking, too soft, and in need of an overhaul. He believes the tests to be far too forgiving and not adequately simulate the real dangers in the galaxy. I mean, to be frank, they are currently at war with the Separatists. I think Anakin's criticism is a little valid. Of course, Ahsoka passes the test with style. However, she is surprised to find that her master is far from impressed. He offers her a new challenge. Side note, we can presume that this episode is set roughly around the same time frame as Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, as seen by none other than Kenobi's luscious mullet. I love this episode. It's so simple, yet so poignant. We cut to a giant hangar where Anakin has organized Rex and his men to surround Ahsoka. He has constructed his own simulation, one far harsher, to simulate what it is really like on the battlefield. Ahsoka is initially confident, yet fails over and over and over again. Her many failed attempts leaves her feeling demoralized. When it seems like she has all but given up, Anakin approaches her.
Well, you're waking up faster.
This is ridiculous. The droids aren't half as good as Rex's men.
That's the point. Look, I know this is tough, but I want it to be difficult. This is about life and death. And as your master, I'm responsible for you.
It's a genuinely touching scene. You can see the array of emotion in Anakin's face as he cycles through concern and disappointment to pride as his student overcomes the odds. It also seems like Ahsoka begins to understand why such training is necessary. The next scene shows an older Ahsoka waking up from being stunned. This time skip to the later end of the Clone Wars indicates that Ahsoka has been consistent in her training for many years. She has gotten better, stronger, thanks to the direct training of Anakin.
Not bad. It took us 5 minutes to knock you out that time.
I can do better.
The episode then finishes with Order 66 occurring, in which we know Ahsoka uses the same defensive technique to protect Rex and survive. The implications of this episode are wonderful. A beautiful tie-in indeed. Unbeknownst to Anakin, he had personally forged Ahsoka into a Jedi capable enough of surviving Order 66, of surviving Vader. It is solely because of Anakin's ruthless training that Vader could not overcome her in Rebels. Even when he was lost to Vader, Anakin was there, watching over her, helping her. His compassion, kindness, and love emanate through this episode. This is the strongest episode of Ahsoka by a significant margin. At just over 9 minutes long, this episode is an impressive demonstration of Dave Filoni's ability to tell meaningful, tight, captivating stories. And now, we turn to the final episode of Ahsoka, titled Resolve. The episode opens with Padme's funeral. We see that Ahsoka was in attendance and met with Senator Organa. After their brief interaction, Rex and Ahsoka jettison off into space. A time skip occurs, and the next we see of Ahsoka, she is older, living in a remote locale, alone. She is, in fact, hiding from the Empire. There's really not too much to this episode. Ahsoka is working on the land with some locals. They seem to trade hay bales to the local towns.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
After some reckless haystacking, the hay bales tumble over and almost crush a young woman. At this moment, Ahsoka uses the Force to save the citizen. Her use of the Force does not go unnoticed, with a young Imperial loyalist tipping off the Empire of her whereabouts. I like the implication that this boy genuinely might believe the Empire to be looking out for their best interests, that it is his duty to do this. Regimes typically don't work if the lay people don't buy into them to some extent. These scenes also mirror Jedi Fallen Order. The only difference is that in Jedi Fallen Order, you have, well, this. Whereas Ahsoka saves them from hay bales. It's fine, it's just fine. I mean, in terms of scale and entertainment value, this episode just doesn't offer too much for me. Anyway, they travel and deliver the harvest and then return to the village, which is conveniently on fire.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Now, if you watch the trailers for this show, your jaw likely hit the floor when your eyes gazed upon this scene.
And who might you be?
You likely asked many questions. Why the funny mask? Is it an Inquisitor?
Who are you? What do you want?
Well, unfortunately, the episode, whilst telling a competent enough story, provides little to no answers of our intrigue towards the masked figure. Well, besides the fact that he was secretly a balloon.
Impressive. Very nice.
Whilst the visuals of the Inquisitor are phenomenal, the overall content left much to be desired. Although, this episode does do a good job at establishing and reinforcing the villainy of the Empire. They just heartlessly laid waste to a village like that. Not to mention the Inquisitor was about to cut down the young child informant as a reward. However, Ahsoka intervenes and the confrontation is swift. Ahsoka easily disarms and lays waste to the Inquisitor. Clearly, she is far more skilled. I got the same vibes as Obi-Wan vs. Maul on Tatooine. Short and simple, which is completely fine. I mean, she is arguably the most affluent and powerful Jedi in the galaxy at this time. However, I can't help but shake this feeling. I couldn't help but feel like this episode was a Fallen Order knockoff. I understand that this episode is based off the Ahsoka novelization by E.K. Johnston. I also understand this episode deviates from said novelization too. Personally, I haven't read this book, so I can't comment on how well the show adapts it or not. Nonetheless, having experienced Fallen Order prior to viewing this, it makes this episode a bit less impactful for me. It feels so safe and by the numbers. I mean, consider the similarities a bit more. There is a Jedi in hiding, the Jedi is forced to use the Force, Inquisitor comes, Inquisitor displays their evil, Jedi and Inquisitor fight, Jedi then becomes motivated to fight the Empire. Do you see what I mean?
They're the same picture.
I guess this episode felt a bit uninspired to me. Fallen Order felt weighty. It had stakes, people died. This episode just felt too neat. I'm not sure how, but I feel there could have been a more creative way to showcase similar events and give them more flavor. This is still good, but I think it could have been better. Do you agree with what I said here? Do you have any other ideas of how you think they could have made this episode better? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to talk about it. And at this point, I feel like I needed a second opinion. So I asked another YouTuber that goes by the name ADHD to comment on Tales of the Jedi. He's a good guy. He and his pals talk about Star Wars in a podcast called Evil Ewoks. If you like Star Wars, you might like him. I'll link him in the description so you can check him out.
The Ahsoka episodes, I don't think were necessary. The baby Ahsoka episode, like it was cute, like it was fine, but did we need it? No. And then the episode where she's basically training with Anakin and it's a big training montage, I felt like they just used that to answer the question, like, how the hell did Ahsoka survive Order 66? But I never really needed a response to that because I always just assumed it was because she was awesome and she was Anakin's Padawan and he taught her. So like that was never something that I took umbrage with. And then the final Ahsoka episode, which was basically like the spark notes of the Ahsoka novel, felt really hurried and rushed. Honestly, they could have just made 3 Ahsoka episodes about the Ahsoka novel. I think it would have worked better. That's what I would have done. Or I would have not made any Ahsoka episodes. Like I said it early in the stream, I love Ahsoka. She's one of my favorite characters. I don't think we needed to see her in Tales of the Jedi.
Modern iterations of Star Wars have frequently been described as playing it safe. While they visually represent the Star Wars we know and love, twirling lightsabers, monologuing, and using the Force, it's often felt like a quick cash grab with no substance or depth to the characters.
Now, give me money.
Thus, they are quickly forgotten and thrown into the ever-growing dumpster of inconsequential streaming content. However, something is distinctly different here. In just over 30 minutes of content, writer and producer Dave Filoni and the team have added more depth and nuance to the character of Count Dooku than over 6 hours worth of film did for Rey. It astounds me that with over $500 million US, the narrative contrived by the sequels cannot top 30 minutes of animation.
Rey Skywalker.
You serious?
Reception to the show has been incredibly positive too. Many people noting that yes, it is short, but what's there is impactful and worthwhile. Also, can we just take a moment to commend the astonishing cast and voice work? They were fantastic here. Most notably are the familiar standouts reprising their role from the Clone Wars. Their work really does sell this show and bring it to life. One thing is clear, this show is not fundamentally concerned with spectacle or a quick buck. Its focus is world building and forging new depth for already established characters. Possibly the highest compliment I can give this show is that it feels distinctly Star Wars. It captures the very heart of Star Wars with its excellent exploration of the light, the dark, and all that's in between. Supposedly, this show came about in a rather unconventional way.
Like these stories, I was writing these little shorts on the airplane and when I was traveling, and when they were reading them, they're like, oh, I really like these. Would you want to make these? And I thought, sure.
And if nothing else, that is a clear gauge of just how dedicated Filoni is to Star Wars. I feel like if we use this as a metric to determine passion and capability of directors, we may never have a terrible Star Wars project again, friends. Oh, yeah, hi. Yeah, take the seat, please. Here you go.
Uh-huh, yeah, so you want to be a director of Star Wars?
Uh-huh, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Do you write Star Wars on planes?
Excuse me? Another thing that makes this series an incredibly easy watch outside of the runtime is the impressive visuals. I mean, just look at how far they've come in this style. It is truly remarkable. Whilst some facial animations do look stiff, what we have still exudes the level of polish expected from the Clone Wars projects. So, do these shorts enhance the prequels? Yes! Obviously. There is a caveat though. You see, what it offers is fantastic, but there is so much left on the table, particularly with the Dooku stuff, that I hesitate to recommend this to anyone who isn't already a fan and has an invested interest in the prequels canon. To analogize, it feels like you've just sat down at one of the most well-esteemed restaurants in town. They serve you the appetizer, which absolutely melts your face with how delicious it is. And then the shop closes. What you experienced was wonderful, but you are left wanting more. That's how I feel about this series. I mean, to Filoni's credit, making someone want more of anything is typically a sign of success. Not to mention, he did create this on a plane from loose ideas, so it was more or less supplemental and experimental by nature. I just hope we get more of it. What was presented, I, for the most part, thoroughly enjoyed, and I want more. And I know I shouldn't. I enjoyed the short form content. However, if they continue telling random stories in multiple seasons, I worry it could splinter the Star Wars canon or make it even more difficult to follow canonically. You might think that's a bit nitpicky. I kind of do too, but it's how I feel. To circle back to the question at hand, why is Tales of the Jedi so compelling? It's because it's simple, yet complex. It's interesting, yet not overbearing. It's visually striking, yet without pointless spectacle. It's character-driven, yet continues to expand the lore. Tales of the Jedi doesn't treat us like children. Instead, it further reveals layers to the Republic duplicity and showcases the contempt of the Jedi, all the while presenting it in an entertaining and darker tone. It shows the love of a master to a Padawan and the necessity for hard work. The stories told here are mostly inspiring. I'd only wish they had more room to breathe, more time to ruminate and expound on their themes. Thank you, Dave Filoni, for continuing to produce some of the best Star Wars content since George Lucas handed over the reins to Disney. And thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. And I mean, if you wanted to, you could also subscribe. There have been words. I post kind of sporadically at the moment, but that's mainly because I have such a high bar of what I want to put out. It takes me forever to make these. If you did like this video and you like Star Wars, you might be interested in my Obi-Wan Kenobi review I did. It'll be on the screen somewhere to click now. Anyway, thanks so much for watching and have a fantastic day.